Well, I was working in California. I was working in the movie business, and I was commuting every week.
Oh.
I was going to L.A. on early Monday morning, like at 6 a.m., and then I would spend the week working in L.A., and then I would take the red eye back on Friday night, and I would land in Newark at 6:30 in the morning, and then I would go home and I'd spend the weekend with my boys. And,
wow.
I did that for about five years, and that was rough.
Yes.
And I loved what I was doing in L.A. I was working for a company called Participant Media that made wonderful issue films like An Inconvenient Truth and Good Night and Good Luck and Waiting for Superman and A Kite Runner and all like that. But it was really hard to juggle work and family. And so when I read that Larry Goldman, who was the founder here and was the CEO for 20 odd years, was retiring, I thought that's an interesting gig, you know, and I threw my hat in the ring and I got picked. So I got to come home.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great way to come home.
Yeah, it was good.
From your vantage point, how would you describe NJPAC's role in the region's art and culture landscape?
Well, we're the anchor cultural institution for the state, right? So, you know, we put on 400 things a year, you know, either here on our campus or elsewhere, you know, whether it's at, you know, in community centers or schools or other venues. So, you know, we take very seriously that responsibility. We are also the most diverse programmer of any performing arts center in the country. Our audience is the most diverse of any performing arts center in the country. Almost 45% of our attendees identify as African American, Hispanic, Asian, you name it. Our opportunity is to put on a season that is truly reflective of the people we serve.
Right. People may naively look at NJPAC and just see it as a venue. Venue, right?
Okay.
And on one end we have the, you know, art education work and community outreach and whatnot that's going on. But from a platform point of view, right, as the world is evolving and people are developing more and more appetite for digital experiences. So, you know, the time spent on their phone, trying to integrate those digital experiences with in-house, in-person, live experiences. How do you navigate and balance that in between the two and remain authentic in each, you know?
Yeah. So, you're right. Nowadays, we all spend way too much time on our phones, on our iPads, sitting at home on Saturday night in front of a 50-foot TV screen. I mean,
while checking our phones at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, there's just so much data in, and nothing will change that. I mean, that's going to stay this way, going to get worse or better, depending on what your point of view is. But what I've learned, and it's funny, when I got here, I was really coming from the movie business and coming from a place where people were beginning more and more not to go to a movie theater to watch movies, but to see, you know, Netflix and look at Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime, and, you know, people will spend literally days uninterrupted watching stuff. I thought, well, how do we fit in that? You know, how does a live experience integrate into that? And what I've discovered is that nothing will ever replace the live experience, and that people are hungry for that and look for opportunities to take advantage of that. So our business here and in our, you know, our satellite venues is as strong as it's ever been. If we book the right shows, if we put on the right productions, people will come. And when they come, the sense of community that occurs when they got a couple of thousand people or 500 people, or you name it based on the size of the venue. When you get a bunch of people in the room, you know, magical things happen. Magical things happen as far as the performers are concerned because they're inspired by the audience, and the audience gets to have an experience that they'll keep with them for, I believe, a longer time than the memory of watching something on my phone. Right. And the other thing we've discovered is the way we communicate with our community now is much more and more through digital. So of 100% of our advertising spend, more and more of it is online. Right. And that is a way for us to build community, whether it's through Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, and our community engagement work, in order to draw crowds for the events that we do around the region. Again, we drive those communities digitally. Right. So,
would you say that that has also created more, quote unquote, ambassadors for NJPAC?
Yeah.
Because they're able to share their experience.
And success, right. Everybody now wants to be part of the show. Right. Right? Everybody wants to share their experience of the event, the show, the conversation, and they want to comment on it. Right. Right? So all of a sudden, one is no longer a member of an audience, one finds oneself a member of a community of commenters and discussers. And I think that's all for the good. That's a good thing.
So NJPAC is clearly world-class venue. Puts on world-class performances, discussions, engagement of all sorts. It's like, I didn't make it so. It's clear.
Okay, thank you for saying that.
Yeah. And one of the things, as you mentioned before, about NJPAC's presentation is how diverse and how reflective it is, not only of the local community here and the diversity here, but worldwide. How is it that you guys are so able to remain tapped into what serves the local community while living on the world stage?
That's a very, I've never got that question before. Our staff here is reflective of the community. So David Rodriguez, who's our executive producer, who books all of our main stage performances, he was born in Newark. He spent the first 14 years of his life growing up in Newark. So he is sort of bred in the bone in terms of that. You know, our community engagement department, members of that department live either in Newark or in greater Newark. So one of the fun things about the mission of the Arts Center is to do the greatest artists in the world, bring them here, and we have spectacular stages for them to perform on, as nice as anywhere in the world, but also simultaneously to make sure that the lives and experiences of our citizens close in also have time on those stages and time in the community. So what I try to encourage among our staff and among our community is bring us stuff that we don't know about. Right. You know? Right. Tell us about activities that are going on in the community where even if it doesn't happen here, you know, we can promote it, we can market it, we can turn the volume up on it so that other citizens are aware of what's going on. And the other thing that we talk about a lot lately here is what I call a boundaryless campus, right? You don't have to come here to have an NJPAC experience. You know, we'll program in the Haynes Building, we'll program in the Newark Public Library, we'll program in the Newark Museum, we will go to the Mayor's Centers of Hope, we will go to church basements. Or sanctuaries. And we can take the arts where folks are, and some of them may decide as a result of that to come here, great. If they don't, that's okay too, because we're going to keep going out into neighborhoods where the arts aren't as readily available. and the ability to be a sustainable business, right? And to do all that stuff, and to put on all the shows we put on, you know, it's a combination of earned revenue and philanthropy. Right? So we're always out beating the bushes, trying to raise money to keep that balance intact.
Yeah. And I want to clarify, because I don't want the question by the audience to be misunderstood as if the local community doesn't have world-class taste.
Oh, it does.
So of course,
it totally does.
Right.
It totally does. The local community is, you know, Newark is a global city. There, and great art doesn't have to be brought in from out of town to be produced here. We produce great art here all the time. And part of our opportunity as a major performing arts center, you know, is to highlight that, right? And to encourage that. And we do that with our kids too. We ask our kids to create art. We ask our kids to be makers of art and presenters of art. You know, the word art is a, you know, it's a very charged word. You know, it's a subjective word. And, you know, we just had a performance by some of our teenage arts training kids. 50 of them put a show on. And they created the show from nothing. Then they wrote the theater pieces, they created the dances, and all of a sudden there was a great piece of art on the stage of the Victoria Theater. Brand new piece of art. As good as anything. And the parents were there, and the grandparents were there, and all of a sudden the parents and the grandparents looked at their kids with new eyes. The kids looked at themselves with new eyes, new confidence. That's what we have a unique opportunity to enable.
And what I can say from what I've seen from the productions that children have put together is it's not simply that you are allowing them the stage or asking them to produce, but you really empower them and give them creative freedom to not only produce a piece of work, but have their personality, have their voice very clearly in that work. And that's, I mean, I haven't seen it here, having seen it out in the community and other, you know, places and places. It's not a matter of this group of children are a product of NJPAC. You know what I mean?
No.
These are students that have been supported and empowered by NJPAC to create what they see, what they don't see, what they want to see, what they no longer want to see, but to create in that world.
Oh, it's very appreciate that. That's very thoughtful of you to notice. Thanks for noticing.
Absolutely.
Savion Glover is our dance advisor, and he's doing a new piece now with about 50 kids, and it's based on the life of John Coltrane.
Yes.
And a lot of these kids, they don't know who John Coltrane is, but over the next 6 weeks, they're going to learn who John Coltrane is, and they're going to, with Savion, create a new piece that sort of tells the story of his life, his struggles, his you know, beauty as a composer and a player. And at the end of this, these kids are going to, some of them are going to have their lives transformed as a result of spending that time with Savion, who is a Newark boy, right? So these are all wonderful opportunities, but to your earlier point, we don't never ever want to tell a kid what to think. What we want to say to a kid is, what's on your mind, what's in your heart, say it out loud, and we will value it, we will dignify it, we will celebrate it, because many kids don't get that in school, and they don't get it at home sometimes.